Hey, Dethroners, welcome back to the Dethroning Your Inner Critic podcast. I am so excited for this topic today. I am speaking with Anne Sophie Reinhart, and she is a mind, body, and leadership coach known for empowering women leaders to embrace self-worth and positive body image. Okay, this is huge. She specializes in self-love and overcoming body image challenges. She offers transformative strategies for balancing professional excellence with personal well-being. Welcome to the show, Anne Sophie.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very excited to be here.
Yes, this is just I've never met a woman that doesn't struggle with body image, right?
Yeah.
I don't care what size you are. And right there, it's sort of like this universal phenomenon. So if we could start with you and how you got into being a coach that specializes in this area.
Yeah. So my parents tell me that I basically came out of the womb and I was like, had a weird relationship around food. And they told me as a child, I was never satisfied when it came to what I ate. And so for some reason, my relationship to food, which is very closely linked to the relationship to your body, right, has always been weird. And I grew up in a household where someone was always on a diet, right? And when I look back, my aunts were on diets. My grandma was always on a diet. Like everyone was just always on a diet, and women and men. But I mean, I was a little girl, so I looked up to the women around me, and they were just always talking about hating their bodies, talking about not eating, talking about needing to lose weight, talking about this and that. And when I was 9 years old, I decided I needed to lose weight.
Oh,
Yeah.
9 years old. Oh my gosh. Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And unfortunately, today, 9 years old, that's old, with children in 5-year-olds already struggle with their body image. But back then, I was like, okay, I'm just gonna lose weight. And I did, and I was very successful at it. And I slipped right into anorexia.
Yes. Yeah.
Which I struggled with for 14, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
It was not just anorexia, it was also binge eating, all kinds of eating disorders, but it just shaped my youth, shaped my early adulthood. And back then we didn't really talk about these issues the way we do now.
Yeah.
So I didn't know that this was a thing. It was just what I did, right? And when I woke up and realized, I actually read a book and I realized, oh, other people struggle too. And the thoughts that I have and the feelings around my body that I have are not normal, and they're not just my own thoughts, right? There's others too. That was immensely healing. And from that day on, I started to heal. I started to work on my own body image. And then, how things happen. I don't know, life happens sometimes. I learned about podcasts and I started a podcast, and then I learned about coaching, and I really went deep into learning how to become a coach, which led me to learning how the mind-body relationship works. And life just happened from there. So
yes.
but it's a very personal issue to me, and I'm very passionate about it. And I'm just really excited to talk about this today.
Yeah, that's so great. Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is that from something that was deeply painful, right? Struggling with anorexia starting at the age of 9. So from that pain, that journey literally defined your purpose, your life's purpose, which I think is I think that's incredibly powerful. And, of course, in the realm of no accidents, right? And everything in our life happens. Um, uh, it could be, as an opportunity for growth, right? It's very clear that if you look back on that whole struggle, right, that's the very thing that you needed to go through to get you to where you are now. And, when I talk about body image, what I always say is that our relationship with our bodies and our relationship with food is really just sort of a microcosm of our relationship with ourself. Would you tend to agree with that? Yeah.
Sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, there's so much we internalize, right? There's so many messages from the outside, but ultimately it is about, do I like myself? Do I
Yes.
know myself? Do I
Yeah.
know who I actually am? Do I live my truth, right? Just it's an exploration of, when you heal, it's an exploration of, what do I want? Who am I really? What do I like? What do I dislike? And we often hide what we don't like on the outside, or what we're not satisfied with in
Mhm.
our struggle with food and ourselves,
Yes.
because it is such an, in quotes, easy
Yes.
easy tool, an easy scapegoat, an easy thing to abuse, right?
Yes.
In order to not feel, or to feel, or to not think, or to think about one specific thing. So it has a lot of great values,
Yes.
and it causes a lot of pain.
Absolutely. So if you look back on your own personal healing journey, your own personal growth journey, what do you think were the parts of yourself back then that you didn't like? And how did you transform that so that
Yeah.
you've come to a place of, maybe even self-acceptance or beyond that self-love?
Yeah. Um, I had a family member who mentally, psychologically abused me from a very early age on. And
Mhm.
I grew up knowing, because, when you're a young child, you absorb everything as the truth.
Yes.
I grew up knowing that I was worthless, like
Oh,
I
yeah.
should not exist.
Yes.
And that is what now when I look back, what I tried to do, right? I tried to make myself so small for so many years
Mm.
that I almost did not exist, right?
Yes.
And I had to learn, first of all, that I am worthy of existing, that I'm worthy of living, of being here, of taking up space, of being fully alive, and that it's that does not mean being perfect, always doing everything right, not making
Yeah.
mistakes. There was so many
Yeah.
fears around
Mm.
when I exist without being sick and without being so small that I'm hardly taking up space, that it's also okay to live fully. And with that come mistakes. There's making leaps and bounds, having fun, but also crying,
Yes.
um, allowing pain to be there, and all of these things.
Yeah.
um, it took me to look at myself as a whole person and accept myself as someone that was in the end worthy of being loved.
Mm.
And I think that oftentimes, this, you don't have to have a background of having been abused, but this image almost of us women taking up space
Yeah.
physically, but also when it comes to voicing, your desires, having an opinion, um, being allowed to be a leader, to be the one that is the one that goes ahead and tries new things, and messing up and then trying again, and all of these things.
Yes.
We're so scared that we don't do it. We're like, oh no, if I don't know how to do it perfectly, I'm not even going to try, because what if people judge me? What if I make a mistake? What if this?
Yeah.
And so all of that, it took me a while to work through this, but
Yeah.
it was just allowing myself to be human in all the levels. And
Wow.
part of that is eating, right? Part of that is having a body and allowing your body to be there. Part of that is having your menstrual cycle and all of these things, right? I had to learn how to deal with all of these
Yeah.
very, in quotes, normal experiences.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you just said about, kind of experiencing all of the parts of being human, right? So you go from this inner, we'll call it knowing, like the truth. I am worthless.
Mhm.
Right? There is nothing inherently good or of value in me. And the only thing that I can therefore control and find my value in is my body, right? So you go from there, which, the stories that we tell ourselves that end up in our own experience becoming facts, becoming truths, right? So the transition to now starting to dismantle the old story and to, reconstruct what I call rewiring an entirely different story, the in between, that old story is so deeply entrenched into our identity, into our personality, into our experience of not only who we are, but how the rest of the world sees us, right? And that transition into rewiring a very different story can be so challenging because it feels so real. And we have so much evidence that we've gathered, right? After all, you had a family member that kept, reinforcing that. And of course, that becomes the lens through which you start to see other people and other experiences. So I'd love for you to talk about how did you dismantle the old story and really start believing a new story about yourself? And then how do you help other women who are so deeply entrenched in believing their, I call this their inner critic mind, right? Their conditioned, habitual, automatic mind. Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that tape that just keeps on playing and playing and
that's
playing, and
right.
you listen, right?
Yep.
Um, Such a good question. And the first thing that I always feel like we need to talk about is the awareness. Like, oh, I actually have that inner critic or the tape or whatever you want to call it. Like, this
Yes.
is something that is there and
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be. Like,
Yeah.
for me, it was reading that book and it was like, oh my God, there's another side to this.
What was that book, by the way? What was that book?
It was by, it's an American, no, I think an Australian actress, Unbearable Lightness by, I don't know the name. It'll come to
Unbearable
me.
Lightness. Okay.
Unbearable Lightness was the name of
Mhm.
the book.
Okay.
Portia de Rossi, I think.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Great.
And so
Mhm.
she wrote that book.
Mhm.
So that for me was step number one. It was like, okay, you know, I recognize myself in her story. What do I do with that?
Yeah.
Um, I got help and I went into in treatment for a few months, went back, tried a few different psychiatrists, psychologists, all kinds of healing methods and all kinds of doctors. And what worked for me in the end was working with a coach who actually helped me to challenge my beliefs, right?
Yes. Yes.
To play with my thoughts, have a little bit of fun with my thoughts and being like, okay, is this really always the truth? Do I always have to believe this? Are
Yeah.
there examples of, when this is not actually the case? Have I heard other things? Because like what you just said, when we believe a certain thought or we have a story, everything we experience, we see through that lens. So we
Yes.
we validate our story over and over and over again, right? So for me, everyone always told me that um you are so disciplined, you are so disciplined, you are, I would love to be as disciplined as you are. So that was part of me feeling like I am only going to be loved if people tell me how disciplined I am for not eating, right? So
Yeah.
your life revolves around that. And but playing with my thoughts and allowing myself to see different aspects. Also looking at, who do I actually want to be? Like,
Yeah.
is this what I want my life to be like forever and ever? Do I always
Yes.
just want to be inside, being hungry, worrying about what to eat, what not to eat? And for me, I had this desire of being a mom and I wanted children. So I knew I needed to clean up my relationship with my body and with food, because in order to have a child, right, I needed to have enough energy and all that. So I had this big goal
Yes.
that was kind of like my North Star, that always, there will be tough times, no matter what kind of critic you have or what you want to work on.
Yes.
Things are messy, right?
Always. Always.
Right.
Yes.
And there are days and times when you're like, I don't want to work on this. Let me just go into my very safe
Yep.
haven. And let me just stay small, or continue doing what I've always done.
Yep.
So having a big goal is one of the most important things. And then allowing yourself to be messy, right? Allowing yourself to fall apart at times. And sometimes I looked at myself as if I was a big puzzle. And, during this time of healing, I just was in 1,000 pieces, and I had to figure out the way I wanted the pieces to work together and to fit together.
Yes.
And, I like to have fun in all this very heavy and important work. So as much as you can put metaphors or images behind your work, as much as you can make this fun, like, cool, I am at this crossroad. I am at this point in my life where I can choose to continue going down this road that I have been down for whatever many years, or I can choose a different way. Let's make it fun. Let's see. And, I can walk down this road, and if I don't like it, I can go back and I can try this way.
Yes.
So all kinds of different ways of just looking at the situation, and then always moving forward, not
Yes.
not expecting perfection, not expecting things to change right away, but allowing yourself to mess up, and having that commitment to continue. Like, when you want to work out, or you want to build a new habit of, I don't know, moving your body 5 times a week, and there's a week when you only do it 3 times because, I don't know, you were stressed, your child was sick, things happened.
Yep.
You don't stop, you continue, right? And so that is kind of like, just keep on moving. Following your North Star, following your goal, following your big dream.
I love that. So there are a couple of things that you said that are really pivotal. Okay. And I think the first thing that you said was you had you had that dream, you had that vision, you had that bigger why, right? And so when we have that bigger why in our life, no matter what it is, whether it's around our body, whether it's around a relationship, whether it's around a business, whether it's around anything, when we have a bigger why, certainly my personal experience and my experience working with thousands of people is that our pain actually pushes us until our vision pulls us. And when you're talking about, your issues with worthlessness and getting to, kind of reassembling the puzzle pieces, so to speak, which I love that analogy. I believe that the way that we do one thing is the way that we do everything. So we've got this automatic mind, right? That is formed when we're very young, and that creates the lens. But I don't think that we actually ever fully eliminate that lens. We can see it, we can see where it shows up and when it shows up. So I am curious, right, as a business owner, as a coach, as an entrepreneur, where does this old inner critic mind still show up in your life? And as a mom, how many kids
Yes.
do you have now?
I have one son.
You have one kid. And how is it a boy or girl?
It's a boy. It's a
How
boy.
old? How old?
He's gonna be 10 already this
Yeah.
June.
Yep. I have two boys and a girl. So
Oh,
I know the boy thing. Yeah. And
oh my God, yeah.
let me tell you something. I just want to interject something about the boy thing,
Of course.
okay? Because right, they adore us. Oh my God, they can't get enough of us. And then around 10, that all starts to change, right? And I know. And let me tell you, that's where like, woo, that inner critic voice can wreak some havoc. So I'm
Oh
just
yeah.
wondering where is it showing up in all of your life?
All of this, yes. In everything. It's the short answer. It comes up. I mean, there's still many moments where I catch myself beating myself up, or where I automatically think others are better than me, others deserve things more, or they know more, or just because they are. And I can always relate it back to, I just still have that very, very underlying belief that tells me you're bad, you're not enough.
Yeah.
And it's quite interesting. I actually had a conversation with a friend a few weeks ago where we talked about exactly that. I go through life, and my first instinct is to put others on a pedestal. That's
Yeah.
just what I do.
Yep.
Her instinct is to go through life, and she's like, oh, how can I do this better? How can I, like, she has a completely different outlook. So
Right.
for me, it takes a second step or a second thought to get to this. All right, what can I contribute, or to see this differently? So it's my
Yes.
instinct to make, like, to feel less than. I think that
Yeah.
is the right word.
That's right.
And you know how I think with motherhood, which is quite interesting, I've always trusted myself 100%. Like, that is
Yeah.
one area where it does not show up, but
Mm.
in work, for sure, one of the biggest beliefs I've had growing up too was I will never make money. Like, I just will never, I will need a husband to support me. It, I don't have role models in that regard. Like, my mom she had her own business. My grandma was like, just didn't show up in my world. I don't know where this came from, but I
Yeah.
just knew that it was another one of these. I know. So at work, it still shows up a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like to be around people that mirror these things to me,
Yeah.
and where I can share these thoughts, and then
Yes.
I can say, all right, but I know it's not true, or I know this is just an old thought, an old belief, and let's continue working with this. But yeah, I would be lying if I said it wasn't there. And with my body too, with my,
Yes.
with my weight and body image. And sometimes you see I see pictures and I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
And then I'm
Yeah.
like, old belief, right? Or old feeling.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think, like you, I think it's always going to be there somehow. It's just
Yes.
how we respond to it, and how we work with it, how we take, this belief, this thought with us on a journey. And then again, asking ourselves, is this what I want to believe? Is this what I want to be true at this point? Or do I
Yes.
want to choose a different life? Like, do I always want to be on a diet, or do I always want to hate my body, or do I want to experience life with this body that I have in this moment that looks a certain way,
Yes.
but is the body that enables me to have 3 children, right?
Yeah.
Like you did,
Yes.
to have this business, to write these blog posts, to paint, whatever you want to do, dance,
Yes.
and then look at this.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so interesting. What you're talking about is that no matter what we do, no matter what goal we get to, no matter what we accomplish, right?
Right.
That old mind is really always going to show up. It's just the next layer, right? It's the next version of it. So, if you look back, I mean, look at how much you've accomplished, right? All of the adversity you've overcome, healing yourself from anorexia and becoming a coach, creating the podcast that you've created, helping women. Really, it's truly remarkable. And yet there's still, but I'm less than, but I'm less than, but I'm less than, right? So, and what you said is so important, that while we're still feeling less than, that we keep taking action towards our vision, right? So what's interesting is, if you look at everything that you've accomplished, right? Do you feel that the less than thing, the I'm less than thing, has it gotten quieter? Has it just changed forms? Where are you now in your relationship with that, what I call your old inner critic mind?
Yeah, I love that question. It's quieter for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it sometimes depends on my mood, on, how well I've slept, on how stressed I am,
Yes.
on circumstances, right? Sometimes, and moms know that, or dad, sometimes when your child is challenging you, you can handle it pretty well, and you're like, okay, I've got this. And then on other days you're like, just not another word, just leave me alone, right? I cannot take this. And I feel like the same is true for your inner critic. When sometimes we have the energy and we don't, it's very quiet, and we're thriving in life, and we're riding this wave. And then there's times when other things happen, and you're more open to hearing that voice, or to hearing the thought, right?
Yeah.
And again, and that's when the self-compassion comes in, right? When this, all right, how would I respond if this would happen to my friend, my partner, my mom, my child?
Yeah.
How would I respond? Instead of going, and this is something I did early on too. It's like, all right, I messed up, or this thought is still there, or I felt like I didn't eat right, or I skipped a meal, or I ate too much, whatever. And you're like, I'm a failure, I'm bad, this is never going to work out. This is just proof that, I am the one in a billion. It's, healing is not happening for me, or I'm not going to get better. This is not for me. And instead of going into that victim mindset, right, just be like, no, this is part of the journey. This is part of life. And what helps me, and what helped me in the past was, listening to others sharing these things, right? And that is why I started the podcast early on too, because I felt I got so much help and so much inspiration from YouTube and podcasts myself, that I felt like, okay, if I can just do this for another person, just being open and sharing what it's like, or right, having conversations like these, it's comforting to know you're not the only one.
Absolutely right. And it's the willingness to be vulnerable. It's the willingness to be open and share what is your human experience. And I think when we have that mind that tells us whatever it tells us, in your case, I'm worthless, right? In my case, I'm just never enough. So, when we have this mind, I think that what success really looks like is the ability to build the muscle around being with the discomfort when it shows up, right? Being in the unknown, in the space of the unknown, right?
Yes. And because with the thought or the feeling you're not enough, like when you think about that, like what is enough? Like, can I ever, like, is there an end goal? Like, what is enough? Will there ever be what do I have to do? Like, there's no answer there, right?
Yeah,
You're always going to be in the gray zone.
it's true. It's
Right?
true. Yeah,
And the same is true for when will I be better? When will I feel better? Like, you don't know. You
no,
don't know.
yeah,
Your coach doesn't know, your therapist doesn't know, your doctor, like whatever. You just never know. It takes as long as it takes, and you will be in the mud and in this for as long as it takes. And sometimes you take a few circles and you have to
yeah,
go back and
yeah,
then, right?
yes, yeah,
And that's why, right, success is how fun can I make this, right? How
yeah.
much fun can I have in between?
I love that. How much fun can I have in the unknown and in the discomfort, right? And it is definitely not this linear journey, as you said. Sometimes we've got to almost go back and revisit the pain, right? So that we
Right?
can,
Yeah.
yeah, so that
Yeah.
we can rise above it again.
Right.
So, are you in a relationship now?
I'm not. No, I'm not. I've not been in a quite interesting. I've not been in a relationship in a while.
Hmm.
Um, and that is something that my inner voice is loud about. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That is a big one. Um, but you don't know. I don't know. COVID happened. I'm a single mom,
Yep.
work.
Yep.
Right. Now I've been a single mom from day one. I was
Mhm.
married. Um, we had our child, but I've been a single mom from the very first day, which I'm so happy about because that circumstance
Yes.
made me realize that I can make my own money, that I can earn my own money, that I can stand on my
Oh,
own 2 feet, that I
yeah.
can not just provide for myself, but also
Yeah.
for a tiny human being. And I always say,
Wow.
we've made it through 10 years now. He's still alive, and that is a big success for me.
He's still alive.
No, no
Yeah.
plant has ever made it out, for more than I mean, this one is a little bit older than
Me too. Me too.
but
I know. I agreed. Somehow I've kept my children alive too, but
right.
plants, forget it. They're toast. Yep. Yeah.
Yes.
I love that. I love that. But I love what you're talking about, because again, what you just said is so powerful, that the ending of your marriage is what actually showed you how worthy you really are, how you really do have the power within you to thrive,
Yeah.
to create your own wealth, to raise your son on
Yeah.
your own. So, I mean, so that's amazing. And I'm curious if you have found that inner critic mind, that I'm worthless thing, does it show up in relationships or in your, idea about getting
Yeah.
into a relationship?
Yes, it does. It does. I mean, I was in relationships on and off throughout raising my son, but sometimes I saw the happy families, and you see other dads picking up, their children at daycare or school, and you're like, something must be wrong with me that I cannot have this for my child or for myself. Um, and with dating, it does show up. It does show up. It's not related to my body anymore. Um, but there's this voice that's, it's like something must be wrong. I mean, everyone
Mhm.
else has, like, your voice says everyone else has a very happy relationship, but you.
Right,
and
right.
um and my last relationship ended. I did need I did a lot of work around that, around
Yeah,
why can I not make this work? And it's tricky. And I
yeah,
remember talking with a coach actually, and she was like, well, um, we talked through certain things, and she held the mirror up because
Yep.
I have certain behaviors and I have certain, men that I attract. And she was like, of course this ended because, and I was like, no, don't tell me. And I argued with her so much. And then I realized, well, why am I arguing, right? What's the point? Instead, allow this to be the truth, and allow her to see you, and allow her to say these things to you, and you can always learn. And yeah, but it's there, and I'm okay with it, right? I'm okay with it being there. I'm okay with the insecurities.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting to see, what the next relationship will look like, and how these things show up. That's what I always, when I talk with clients too, it's like, sometimes things end. We have a certain jeans size and we don't fit into those anymore. So that's a big ending there. And I'm always like, well, what can you look forward to in the next chapter? Like, what does the next size have in store for you? And so it's kind of the same thing with relationships, or like you just said, things change when your sons turn 10.
Yeah.
But
I didn't mean to scare you. It could be different for you.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So and I think that is the foundation of being a good coach, right? Is your own ability to keep seeing the layers of healing, to keep seeing where that old mind wants to suck you back into believing its story, and finding the evidence to support the story. And so, as you said, sometimes we need to keep revisiting that pain, right? And so, I think that everything is predicated on our relationship with ourselves. So our relationship with our bodies, our relationships with other humans, who we are as women, who we are as mothers and daughters and sisters. And, it's all on top of that automatic relationship with ourselves. And so everything that happens, right, if things don't go in the direction that we want them to go, rather, we can just keep re-examining what is that part of that relationship with myself that gets in the way. And the more that you do your own inner work, that's the thing that sources you to help other people with their inner work.
And this is such an important point. One of the things that we never realize is that we are the people we spend the most amount of time with. Like we're spending all of our time with ourselves.
Right.
Let's date ourselves. Let's get to know ourselves. Let's form that relationship with ourselves.
Yeah.
Because there's no escaping. Like we're in this for life.
Totally.
And let's just see how we can make friends, and how we can get to this point of being like, okay, there may be things that you may not find so great about yourself, but we all have that, and we all have quirks, and they make us lovely, they make us unique, they make us who ourselves, and just getting to the foundation of being solid in the understanding of who you are. And anything can happen from there. Anything, right?
Anything is possible. It really is that our future is a wide open space that gets created from continuing to reinvent that relationship with ourselves. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Amazing. I think we could spend hours on this conversation, but thank you so much for your wisdom and for sharing your vulnerability with us today. And where can my listeners find more information about you and all the great work you do?
Yeah, well, thank you so much. You can go over to my website. I have a specific site, especially for you as a listener of this podcast. You can go over to annesophie.us/ DYIC. I hope I said that right. But I'm sure Joanna will put it in the show notes
I
and everyone will
will.
be able
Yes,
to click it. And
for sure.
you will find, resources. You will find a self-image quiz that you may want to take, a little course on body image, and links to social media and all that. So I would love for you to come over and say hi. And yeah, thank you, Joanna.
Absolutely. Thank you for a wonderful conversation today.